Good morning, everyone. It's mid-month July, and it's Stampede season. In Calgary, Austin, how's the Stampede going?
It's back with a vengeance. It sounds like it's going to be a very exciting time down there. I don't know if I'll be making an appearance at Stampede or not. That's probably to be determined. But you can tell it's nice to feel the energy that's back in the city from it, regardless of your feelings on whether you're a big Stampede person or not. It's just nice to feel that sense of the city's kind of back alive again, and there's things going on, which is always good.
It's great. Yeah, to give a bit of life back into the city and everyone just get out and enjoy the summer. It's really good to see. And it's fun. It's a big part of Western Canada, and a lot of people liken it to Texas in the north. So it's nice to see, and Alberta could use some extra joy and love right now as well. So it's a good thing.
Exactly. You can't complain about it.
And today, because we like to talk a bit about mindset, we're going to do it a little bit more often. And, of course, we've got the market model mindset, which is basically out. We've been talking about it. We had a couple of edits we had to make, but it's coming out. And mindset is such an important thing to talk about. And you see in a lot of other things. You see sportscasters talk about it. You talk about athletes talking about when they get into a mindset to perform at a certain level. Musicians have to get into a certain mindset. Actors have to get in. So there's a certain thing that you have to take on. And we just use the markets as another barometer for the same thing. That mindset doesn't waver, doesn't change. The process might be a little bit different. But I want to talk about it in context to two great stories that we want to kind of chat and check up on again. One, of course, is Desert Mountain Energy, which they're 4 for 4 with their wells. So congratulations. Their news release was out today. They were halted yesterday. Of course, people wait on bated breath and hold their breath like, oh, I hope it's good news. So it's good. We don't know the details, but it's good news. And the second is QYOU. And we'll talk about why, the mindset and patience and model and everything, all this makes sense in regard to these two. But give us a little update on QYOU.
We'll give you a quick rundown. It's just we always, when we talk about QYOU and touch on the story, we talk about hitting milestones and continuing to expand and grow on what they're already doing, and this is just a continuation of that. They've got a program that they rolled out through their influencer marketing to promote a film for Universal and Warner Brothers that's actually received a nomination for an award in an influencer marketing award. So these influencer marketing awards were started in the UK about 3 years ago. They go basically to anyone who's in the specific section of marketing as an influencer, so going out and doing promotional stuff, specifically like paid content rather than like just an influencer who's making random TikTok dances or something like that. These are people who are actually, going to actually promote and try to market certain products, movies in this case, or whatever it may be. So they were nominated for this award. It's kind of just going to showcase their ability to already create fantastic content. I mean, the QYOU's been building up their advertising revenue. They've been building up their obviously their growth and their impact that they have with the Chatterbox acquisition. So it's just piling more on top of that and saying, hey, look, we can actually now produce really, really top quality content, award nominated content, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, I just want to do it because when you were talking, I was reminded that I saw an article a little while back, and it was about the highest earning YouTube star of 2020 was a 9-year-old boy named Ryan Kaji. He earned $30 million from his channel, which has 40 million subscribers. So it's hard. It's for, that's a big context there. And I believe he reviews toys. So it's genius.
Yes, he does.
I mean, I can't imagine that I would want to watch a kid play with toys. But if you're a kid who's like, hey, I want to find out if this toy is any good or not, then let's just see someone in action. Okay. And a parent, like, is the pizza going to fall apart? Can they eat it? Or but I'm shocked at the size, but that gives you an extent of, okay, how can you monetize these things? And that's how this new market is shifting and moving, and people staying ahead of that and moving away from legacy mainstream kind of outlets are getting big payouts. And that talks about mindset too, is that we have to reinvent and reimagine and pivot our kind of paradigm and worldview a bit in order to find the opportunities, especially now, because everything's in such chaos, such flux. There's more negative news out there if people just looked at it all day than positive, for sure. But it's not hard to find a lot of the good as well. You just have to dig a little bit. And that's that kind of message with both QU and DME is DME, we had to wait a little bit longer for this fourth hole, and people were getting antsy, and the brain starts wondering, oh, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe they're not telling us something. All of these questions start to happen, and these are fair questions to ask because it certainly happened before in the markets where you're waiting, it's nothing, crickets, and it's bad news. But in both these cases, we feel very strong. We know that Desert Mountain announced 4 for 4. So what those details are, we'll see. But it's having that patience, and for me, there's anticipation and excitement about it. But I'm so confident in Robert Rolfing and the team over there. And I also know, we're talking about drilling. They're not going to hit every single hole and every time. They're just not. The fact that they've gone 4 for 4 right now is incredible. It's outstanding. And today you can see they're being, quite well rewarded. Although I suspect that is going to go for a little bit more of a run right now, especially whenever we get the actual details of what that's looking like. But it's just a great, it kind of puts yourself at ease. And I've spoken about this before when I talk about mindset, is waking up with kind of an intention for the day. And if I can look at some of my positions and know I'm confident in Desert Mountain Energy, unless there's something that really removes me away from that confidence, I like investing in it. I don't worry about it. I get more excited than anything else, and it's realistic. Are there other positions that are more aggressive, that are more like a hope and a prayer? Maybe, but we try to remove a lot of that with the market model mindset, with having a model and having people that we know are excellent at what they do and not worrying about the micromanaging or anything. And if you're investing, that's what you're saying. You're saying, I'm going to give you money because you're going to be able to get an exceptional rate of return. And you should have utmost confidence in that person, that team. If you don't, maybe you shouldn't, or the project. And of course, if we're drilling, we're mining, we're doing oil and gas, we're doing any of that sort of stuff, you also you're at the fate of the drill sometimes too. So, that just happens, but we know that that's something beyond our control to some extent. You can mitigate some of it, but you can't guarantee hitting things. But it's important to have that mindset, and I think it played out very well, certainly with Desert Mountain today. And it's a good feeling of win, but at the same time, it's like, well, I didn't really feel like I was that far out there anyway.
Yeah, and you can find a million reasons when you're looking at a stock or trying to decide on investing in a company. You can find a million reasons to sketch yourself out or talk yourself out of it. But when you're basing it on something concrete, when you have a backing and a system, a methodology behind what you're doing and the decision that you're making, it makes it much easier to ride out those flat periods, those months sometimes, and they can be months where we're just waiting for something to happen.
Yes.
You could, if you look at the actual breakdown of the last 2 years on the Desert Mountain chart, and we've talked about this before, there's been times where we've just been sitting there waiting, kind of twiddling our thumbs like, all right, when's something going to happen? But it's brilliant because, especially in the case of Desert Mountain, it just seems that these guys can't stop winning, in a sense that every time they've got news coming out, it's fantastic, and they're doing an incredible job, which is what makes it so exciting. But you also, that starts then playing to your mindset as well of like, okay, hey, we know this is good. We know they're having success. They're constantly churning out good news. It's the same with QU. Every time we hear about a press release from Kurt or anyone over there, it's always great news. They've always got exciting stuff going on, and they're preemptive. Openly talking about how their revenue, not issues, but how their revenue is going to translate, when you can expect to see those numbers boosting up. So it's good to see people being proactive and staying on top of that, and it just helps reassure yourself when you've made that decision to invest in one of these companies, to then say, hey, you know what, like, yeah, they're going to do well. It's going to move along, even if you're stuck in that kind of waiting, the loading zone, you could call it.
Yes. Yeah. And anybody who reads our work as well is on superchargedstocks.com and goes to the website. And I urge you to go and sign up. It's free for now. We've got the newsletter that we're going to be hosting here as well. And we want you to get out there and share it with others too. We work with both Desert Mountain and QU. We want to work with them. We own shares in it, love it. And the mindset for me is just as day one. I own shares at like 32 cents of Desert Mountain Energy, and I'm not selling. So, and that's a tough mindset, because people will ask me, oh, what about this or that? I can never tell anyone how they should invest or what they should do. I don't know them well enough. I don't know the risk tolerance. I'm not licensed to, but I just say that's part of the model, is just to recognize, if you had a target of making X percent, 20%, and that was good enough, then just that's it. It's hit ceiling. Or if you had a loss of 20% and that's it, that's your limit, that's it. You've set the parameters. You have to do that. It shouldn't then shift and change. You have to be diligent about what it is, where you are in your life and your situation, your risk tolerance and everything else. And that's critical. And that's why we always encourage people, you should work with a financial planner. You should work with a broker to some extent as well. We're dealing with the really fun stuff. Like, we're dealing with the exciting, like the high venture, the high growth, the really exciting stuff. And that gets people jazzed up. But that's not your entire assets. That's not your entire wealth. And that you need to have a professional help you. And they're there to some degree. And even whenever I was at Merrill Lynch, is to some degree, you're there as kind of like a therapist to remind people, don't get carried away. Like, you've got kids, you got to send them to college. There's this, there's that, and we're holding up the report card to remind people, this is where we're going. This is the plan. And that's what's so great about having the full plan, having someone to work with. And even if you have a smaller account, it doesn't have to be that you have tons of assets, but it's important. And that's part of the mindset too. It's kind of like having a coach. And if you've got a good planner, you've got someone that's great. Where we fit in is that, for me, that's a different job than what I do today. Obviously, I get excited about finding these credible ventures, and because of this very specific, unique situation that we're in the last couple of years, that I've been yelling out off the top of my voice, about this, about commodities, about the fiat system, the printing of money, and no one really that really interested. I mean, mainstream news wouldn't talk about anything like that, and it's not a story except for now. So they're starting to pull up. You start to see the things. Goldman Sachs is talking about inflation. You see the articles popping out about inflation. You hear about the concerns about the trillions of dollars printed. That's, and then we're supposed to pretend like that won't have an effect. So all of these things are coming together, and they're coming together in the context of this new shift in energy and the way that we relate to space and time and this and that, and the convergence of, blockchain, cryptocurrency with energy. So it's a fascinating time, and it requires, because there's so much happening and so much hitting us all at once, it requires a very strong mindset for people. And just one before I'm going off on so many tangents. One of the most fascinating things about the brain, I remember reading a book on neurology, was not necessarily the capacity to learning, which is incredible, but it's the capacity to forget, the ability for our brain to wipe information out that it knows it doesn't need to keep, is actually one of the most fascinating things about the brain, because you have to think, it's taking in everything around us right now. It's evaluating everything. It knows that some is not important and can just dismiss it. And we don't focus in on it, but we can harness what we do really focus in on. And I think that's what's fascinating. And that's no bigger time a lesson than today, to really focus in on, can you see the big picture that's unfolding, whether you like it or not. Some of the bad things will resolve and will occur, and we'll deal with them then. But there's plenty of good things happening right now, and if we focus on that and apply our money and our efforts to there, then that's a good day. That's a good day's work. Yeah.
No, there's tons of opportunities to get excited about, and you made a really good point. I'll kind of backtrack it a little bit, where you talked about having an advisor and having a plan and molding yourself to kind of fit your own personal risk tolerance, your needs and stuff like that, which is extremely important in the context of how we live our lives today, because everyone has, these certain fixed expenses, let's call them, whether you're paying a mortgage, you're paying rent or something like that. Obviously if you've got kids, there's an expense that comes with that. You're married, you've got an expense that comes with that. You got groceries, you've got your car, you've got standard payments on that. You got to fill it up with gas. So you have to have your own basic, standard expenses covered, but you also want to have a plan for how you are going to grow your wealth down the road. And you need a mixture of everything in order to get that, right? You need the fun, exciting stuff that we talk about all the time. You need your desert mountains in there to really kind of grow that number, but you need safer stuff as well. You need stuff that you can feel comfortable in. And that's where having like an actual solid financial advisor, rather than, you know, my personal strategy of basing my investments off of which color of crayon I ate for breakfast. It's a little bit better to have someone who can actually help map that out for you and help you check all the boxes that you need checked. Like for me, for example, I'm not necessarily as worried about the safest investment strategy for right now in my life. I'll probably start worrying about that when I get into my 30s, or, you know, eventually. Right now, I'm a little bit more excited, and I can handle a little bit more risk than I might be able to in 5 years from now. Who knows? But that's why it's important to have your own fundamental strategy laid out, and then you don't get worried when these kind of things go on, or when you're waiting to see like, oh my god, what's going to happen with this stock, when's it going to get moving. You don't feel the need to make some money off this. It's like, I want to see this do really well. I'm not, you know, I haven't just to coin a term from Reddit, I haven't just made a YOLO on GME to you know, YOLO'd my mortgage on GME in hopes that it's going to go to the moon, because that'll bite you in the ass at some point.
Yes, yeah, and I mean that's it's a good thing to keep in context and keep in mind. And I know you're joking a little bit about the crown thing. That's an homage to our Wall Street Bets,
our friends at Wall Street
Reddit
Bets,
friends. Yeah. Send me a message. Do you want to know what that means? But we'll leave that alone. One thing I wanted to touch on too is we had two videos that we put out this week, and one was with this Ariana Phosphate, and the other one was with Digby with Jamie Strauss. Mm-hmm. And those haven't got as many views, but I would urge people to look at both those, because we're going to dive more into Ariana Phosphate, because that is a huge shift as well in looking at food. So we're not there yet, but we're looking at them, and it's really fascinating, and it's a good case study to how to view a company out there that's in a big macro environment and with a supply demand curve that looks very attractive. The other one was this realization, speaking with Jamie Strauss about ESG, and there's a lot of bad with ESG. Don't believe me. We're seeing it. We're seeing a lot of this in the U.S. right now. There's a lot of bad as far as politics goes with it, but there's a lot of good. So once again, you can't have a universal program. There's nothing universal in life. You can't have a policy that affects everyone of all races, different cultures, ethnicities, beliefs, mindsets, cultures, that can apply across the board. It doesn't work. It never will. Yeah. It never can. So I try not to get people too hung up on the negatives from the World Economic Forum and from this ESG push, but there's tons of positives. And Jamie Strauss really laid it out there to let us know, here's what the good things are. Here's a system that we can apply. And that is a great gatekeeper for allowing funds to flow into this market. I mean, if you want to see this sector go 10 times up, then it has to be allowed to. And right now, if there's a system in place that allows billions to come in, and they want to fund, they know, I mean, these funds like Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, they know mining is the key to this. It's just they have to have the parameters, since they have been yapping and talking about all of these things for so long. They will have to find some way in order to get the money to where it needs to go in order to meet any of these lofty goals as far as the environment go. If they want any remote chance of being held accountable, they have to go into mining. So I look at what Jamie's doing with Digby as being so critical, and giving a certification, this link between big funds and big governments, to say, listen, we're setting a criteria and a certification for companies to help them, give them the framework to hit these targets in order to get the funding. And when that starts happening, you want to talk about a commodity super cycle, that's going to be exciting. So that's where I look at this. When you look at times in the past, just whenever the mining sector has gone on a run, it's pretty exciting. Like, and we're not on a run yet. Like, we've got lots of big wins, but we're not on a run yet. If we can get this type of cornerstone and this bridge to hit the big funds, that they can then go, we can now place money into big projects,
Yeah.
That is massive. And just to give a bit of context as to what that could look like, you look at like a new Vermont that's got an all-electric mine. That's what happens. Innovation comes to mining, and all of a sudden you can do things so much more efficiently, effectively, and bring all of the technology we have to mining on a global scale, and that cuts down on waste, on safety, on the environment, and like, make no mistake, there's lots of issues that need to be solved, but most of them aren't coming from the big companies. So that's the other kind of myth that's out there. But I wanted to highlight that because it's really interesting to see when people have products and have solutions that really could make a change. And I wanted to highlight those because those were two standouts in a long while where I got really excited. And I really got excited by speaking with both Jamie and with Ariana Phosphate.
Yeah, it's very important to highlight because we can even get caught up in it a little bit that we consistently have this opportunity to chat to some really, really brilliant people. And this week for me really highlighted that between Brian Ostroff over at Ariane Phosphate and Jamie Strauss with the Digby Group, both brilliant guys in their fields who have a deep understanding and are fantastic to kind of listen to and engage with on both of those subjects. And you did a lot of expansion on Digby and the ESG side of things to kind of deep dive into the phosphorus side of things as well. It is like coming up on almost being a very, very critical mineral in the kind of path forward in the type of farming that we do. I did a little bit of research and digging around after we talked. It is incredibly important to have phosphorus, to have that kind of nourishment for the plants that you're growing, and to be able to grow them at the massive scale that we need to in order to feed the massive amount of people that we have on this planet. It kind of gets a little bit insane when you have to wrap your head around those numbers. But then you can see the price of phosphorus and the way that it's moving up, and the price trends that it's going on is extremely encouraging for that industry, which fits right into the mining industry. It's not even something you think fertilizer. The first thing that comes to your mind is not mining. But it is. That is the key component.
Crushed rock. Yeah.
Like all my experience with fertilizer came from my years working at golf courses and understand. Oh well, we need to go fertilize. Got to make it look a little bit more green out there, boys. But,
and probably more potash type of thing than necessarily phosphorus and phosphate. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, but that was so that expanding on that and beginning to understand like, wow, this is something that is absolutely critical that we're going to need in order to sustain ourselves, and to talk about sustaining the environment that we live in and all that, but just about sustaining humankind. That's a massive resource that's going to be applied to that. But really a great privilege to kind of get to chat to such intelligent guys and listen about their projects and find out more. So yeah, I encourage anyone who missed out on those conversations this week to go check those out, because they're definitely engaging guys to listen to.
Yes, and thanks everyone for the likes and the we're growing pretty rapidly, which is great, and that helps. This algorithm works that the more engagement, the more likes, the thumbs up, the subscribes, the shares. That's how all of this works. All the social media stuff works. And hopefully if we've got good content, you like it, send it out. We are working on, because we had a shout out from a friend, Shelly, I won't say the last name, of course, who wants us to talk a bit about carbon credit investing. So that's on its way. We just had a busy month. Yeah. So that's coming. And of course, I don't want to leave off as well without mentioning, the great chat we had with Frank Holmes from Hive. That was a real fun interview. I mean, talk about someone who's got a wealth of experience and knowledge throughout the markets, a deep understanding of them. And also, I mean, this is someone who gets to be in the Blockchain Mining Council along with Elon Musk and Michael Saylor. That's a pretty big deal. It was such a great conversation, and it's just amazing to be able to interview and talk with these people that really are at the forefront of this innovation and this shift, and it's pretty exciting. We're glad you're here as well. Help us grow, and have a great weekend. And for those of you in Alberta, get to the Stampede and have some fun.
Are you trying to tell me that I need to go get down to the Stampede? Because I'll do it, man. If you're
well, hey, put on the cowboy boots and just head out. Go for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I gotta see how much dust is on those. I think it's been a little while.
Beautiful. All right. Well, have a great weekend, everyone, and enjoy it as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.